Hi everyone, my name is Justin Odisho, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use my new Super 8 film overlays pack. So if you're not sure what Super 8 is, it's a film that was developed by Kodak in the mid-60s to get a little improvement on the typical 8mm, and it's characterized by this rounded border, that nice film grain and jitter, and this sweet sprocket hole that kind of pushes into the picture a little bit. Super 8 is a look that's remained relevant even in popular videos today. Tons of music videos are using it because it gives that nostalgic quality, the unique borders, and retro feel that can come in handy and add style to your projects. Typically, shooting film is costly, time-consuming, and harder compared to the digital formats of today thanks to technology improvements. But it can be a rewarding art form, and there's a certain quality of it that is just hard to get on digital. But for those of you who are not looking to go get a vintage film camera, go buy some film stocks, find a place to get them scanned, developed, uploaded, and are looking for some great assets to instantly get you that film look while saving time and money, then I've carefully put together this pack of a bunch of different film looks, grains, textures, and burns for you. This pack includes 3 different types of film stock, 500T, 50D, and 200T, that I've shot both the black grain, a white matte overlay for you to get the border and apply over your images, and also a green screen or colored screen, as well as a bunch of film burns and light leaks for you to use as transitions. These files are all available in 4K ProRes resolution, and they've been scanned in a flat picture profile, giving them maximum flexibility and adjustability. And although I'll be demonstrating them to you in Adobe Premiere Pro, the great thing about these is they're basically like stock footage, and you can use them in any editing software or basically any program that accepts video clips. So the first thing you'll notice about these clips is they're all 15 seconds long. Since these are 4K files, they are very large, and rather than giving you large 1-minute blocks at a time, that would take up your whole hard drive, I've made them into loopable 15-second segments, so you can use them for B-roll. This should be appropriate for most situations, but let's say you need more time. If I just hold Option or however you want to duplicate and drag clips next to each other, then you'll see that the clips just kind of loop into one another without the eye ever noticing. So if you do need a minute, you can easily create a minute. If you need 2 minutes, you can get 2 minutes. It just loops over and over and over. And you can adjust that to your liking, whether there's a certain flicker, or sometimes on the left side, you'll see some cool letters or number details flash by. You can always chop those out or splice those in different places if you want a truly randomized feel. So let's open up a new sequence, and I'll show you guys how you might use some of these with some example clips and how you can easily blend and adjust them like you might have seen in the trailer video that I posted. So I've got this clip that I shot on a camcorder. You can see this is a digital file, not shot on film. And let's turn it into a Super 8 film look by using these overlays. So we can pick a different grain. The different 200T, 500T, 50D are just different types of Kodak film, and they all have a different characteristic and grain to them. 500T is quite noisy and grainy, 200T is kind of in the middle, and 50D is a little bit more soft. So let me open up the 50D bin, and they're all organized, and you have a white, green, and black screen just for different scenarios. You can key or blend, but let me drag the white clip on here, and you'll see the entire screen kind of gets taken over by this grain. And that's one thing I want to point out on the adjustability of these is, since they're all shot in 4K, if you're working on any regular HD or 1080p sequence, you have the flexibility in the size. So scaled all the way at 100, you can just have the option of applying that grain. So let's say I set it to something like multiply, then we just get a little bit of that film grain in the sky. Or if you use the scale feature, you can scale it down and get a little bit of that film sprocket and border peeking in if you wish. Or if you want to scale it all the way down, you can get that entire film border coming in. And like I had before, this is just set to multiply blending mode. If you're unfamiliar with blending modes, I do have several tutorials on my channel, even stemming all the way back to Photoshop. But multiply is one that essentially makes white invisible and imprints the shadows. So I've shot these with that in mind to make them work. And since they are all shot quite flat in color, you can always head over to the color tools in your editing program. In Premiere, we have the Lumetri color section, and the basic correction and curves should be all we really need. If I open up the curves menu, I can add a little bit of contrast to this to my liking to make the border as strong as I want, also the middle of the frame as dark and grainy as I want, or pull up the highlights a little bit to make the inner section of the film strip as kind of clear as I want. So if I really don't want much grain and I just want the border, I can basically get rid of it all with the curves tool. So that's the great thing about them being shot pretty flat, is you can bring in or out all this color and texture to your liking, and then all the information is there in the file, and you can get some really great looking textures based on each different clip. Also, if you're unfamiliar with how the curves or any of these adjustment tools work, I also have free tutorials on those on my YouTube channel. But at its most basic, this is just a line allowing you to influence the highlights and the shadows by pulling them darker or lighter and creating curves and contrast in them. You can also have some influence over these clips by going to the basic correction section. Adding contrast will do the same thing as adding contrast in the curves, or exposure to brighten or darken things up. And even saturation can bring some of that film color back in it if you wish. And that's just one basic workflow for applying the film. So you can see before, after. Not only does it apply a little bit of grain, texture, color, but also a border if you want, and a little bit of that jittery animation. Now, since blending modes are so flexible, there's tons of different ways that you can actually use these. You can set things to overlay or hard light and soft light, and just get all different kinds of looks and adjust those alongside with the curves and correction. But you can see how these basically can give you a great looking variation of effect on almost most of these blending modes. Now, when you're going into these sections, the lighter ones like lighten, screen, color dodge, things that will usually make things brighter and make the shadows disappear and the whites show up, this is where I've included some other textures. So let's delete this one for now and go back into our film grain bin, and let's add that black texture. So this one I shot closed, so there's no border, you don't really see anything but solid black. So this is a time where I could use something like screen or lighten just fine to get some of that white grain in there. And this is also a really good example of how much control you can have over the curves, because if I open the curves, right now we've got a pretty solid grayish noise going on, but if I want, I can make it a lot more speckled just by making this curve a lot harsher. So now only the strongest little pieces of dust really become visible, which actually can look really cool. You can see in my trailer, I use that same technique to kind of add a little bit of background to some of these titles. But if I also put this on something like screen or lighten, it's a lot more subtle of an effect. And you can actually end up stacking multiple grains if you want. Let's say you just want the white speckles from the 50D, but then you also want the border from the 500T. So any editing program you're in should at least have some basic correction and opacity and blending tools. I've also included a kind of green screen overlay that works just like the white one, but just in case you need some sort of green screen, you could actually head over to your program's keying tools. So in Premiere, that's under Effects and Key. So you can use something like Ultra Key. And since I've shot them green screen style, you can just select the key color. So we'll key out the green. And that's another way that we can just get the border and end up using these as mattes, because keying can offer you some different tools. So I just added that in there to give you some more options and flexibility. Moving on to this next folder, I've also included in the pack several burns and light leak type of effects. So these are where the cartridge gets exposed to light for a brief period of time, thus creating this flash of light and burn and reddish leak. So it can look really great just as a stylized effect on a blending mode, or to start a project, or as a background to a title, and even transitions. So you can see in the trailer, I've used these film burns for a transition effect in multiple different ways. One, you can just use these without even putting them on any sort of blending mode. So let's add this little film burn end, and even just leaving these on their normal blending modes with no edits, when I play it through, it can serve as a cool transition because it's such a quick flash of color and grain that it can take your eyes to the next clip. Alternatively, you can set these to blending modes right over top of clips, and they also work really well on blending modes such as screen or color dodge, or you can play around with other ones as well. So if I set this to screen, since at one point it's going to be totally white, it's almost going to flash transition into the next clip. So again, I can play that. You can see a light leak into the next clip, and these are totally stackable, adjustable as well. So you can get crazy and splice them together in different ways, but there's 7 different burns, and then the in and outs, like when the clip starts or ends, that also have some leaks in them. So I put them all together in this folder with 11 different textures in it. Another cool blending mode you can do with any of these film looks is difference or exclusion, and this can get you that inverted film look. And don't forget, you can always keep things normal and adjust the opacity and strength with any of these. So sometimes just putting it at 50% can look cool too. Now on the flip side, I can actually do it the other way around by adding the clips that I want and setting those on blending modes or opacities. So I can set these on overlays or multiplies or soft lights, etc. And in this case, we have just the matte on the bottom serving as the base, and we're just applying overlays and blends on top of it, and we can stack that as many layers as we need. So either or, sometimes when you're working with complex multiple layers, it can help having both workflows, border on top or bottom, get slightly different results. Finally, in the pack, I've included some bonus still frames. So these can be cool if you just want a texture or a backdrop, especially even for photo editing. You can definitely use some of these light leaks. Photoshop has all the same blend modes that we've been experimenting with here. So even on your photo edits, you can use these, or in your graphic design or editing projects. Some of these are really cool, just textures and grains that you can use in the backdrop or within your designs. And they're also in 4K resolution as well. So they're big enough to have lots of different sections and high quality to work with. And I've also included 2 little sound effects for the film shooting noise, so you can get that film shooting or projector type of noise to add to your project if you'd like a little bit of sound design. So those are just some of the ways that you can use these textures and grains. This pack is available for sale now on my web shop, justinodisho.com/shop, and you can find it in 4K or 1080p resolutions. If you guys enjoyed this video, hopefully you still learned something, even if you do or don't wish to get this pack, or maybe you want to experiment with the film or just use this in your projects digitally. Hopefully you enjoyed and learned something, and if you do decide to purchase, thank you so much for your support, and I hope you'll enjoy them as much as I have created them, and definitely I will be getting to use these myself in my projects in the future now too. So thank you so much for watching. Subscribe on YouTube to stay tuned for all my new videos. Follow me on social media to keep up to date with new products and whatever else I'm up to. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on there or email. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.